All right, let's get started. Thank you all for joining us in day 2 of the GitHub workshop. Today, we will build upon what we learned from yesterday. We went through the basic workflow of using Git and pushing changes to GitHub. Today, we'll be talking about what is next, which is how to collaborate, how to merge, how to track changes, and the likes, right? So we've got Git installed on um, our computer. So I did the installation on Mac and Windows. Yesterday, I forgot to mention one thing, that sometimes people on Mac, they get an error message whenever they try to push to GitHub. So if you are prompted to log into GitHub on Mac, you will be asked to enter your username and password. So Git by default on Mac OS will ask you to enter your username and password. If you see a message related to that, then you need to go to your profile and click on settings. So you need to click on settings and then go to the developer settings. All right, so if you go to developer settings, click on tokens. This is only if you are on Mac, right? And you need to generate a new token, and you will need to authenticate. So in this case, I'm going to authenticate just to demonstrate this. And I need to do this two-factor authentication. And then it should ask me to create a password. So I'm gonna name this my iMac, for example, at home, and then you give it an expiration date and you give it permission to access your repository. So this is basically a one-time password to do on Mac OS only, and then you generate token, right? So you copy this token and then you use it as a password, right? So when you're asked to enter a password, you just copy this and enter it in the command line. All right, this is only if you are on Mac. So I have to delete this because I don't want people to access my account. So that's how you do this um, personal access token, which is like a one-time password on Mac OS. Right? If you are on Windows, I believe you are in a good shape, since in Windows, the authentication is often handled by the Git credential manager, right? Um, so that's how you do authentication on Mac OS. On Windows, it uses Git credential manager, GCM, and you should be fine. All right, so that's the common problem that I saw some people who are on Mac OS run into. If you're on Windows, I think you're in good shape. You don't need to worry about generating this, as you will be directed to the browser to do the authentication, right? So let's get started and continue on what we built upon yesterday. So what I want to do right now is I want to create a new project. So if I go to my virtual machine here, and I want you all, before we get started, I want you all to download the Get It app. So I posted the link to it. The link is also on the workshop website. Download the Get It app. It's in the flyer that you all have received. So please be sure to download it, as we will work on the steps and tutorials in the workshop app. All right, and then you'll be asked to submit your work screenshots as an assignment for this workshop. So let me open PowerShell here, and let's just create some very simple workflow that we want to create a project. So let's first create a project on GitHub. So go to your account and then click on the plus sign here or create a new repository. And I'm going to name it. I have multiple organizations. So in your account, perhaps you're going to have only one username here. So I'm going to be creating a repository and I'll name it, let's call it Git dash playground, right? I'm going to be make it public so you all can see the changes. You can give it a description if you want. And then you create the repository. So don't add anything here, just create this repository. So I did. Now we are giving this URL to this repository. So we will come back at this when we create a new or add things to the repository, right? So let's go to our text editor. So in this case, our text editor is VS Code. I'm going to be creating a new project in Visual Studio Code. Right. I try to do it here on Windows. I know it's slower on my machine, but I try to provide you with a consistent experience so that way I meet you where you are as we work on this together. So I'm going to close this one. So I'm going to close this folder. All right. And it should have closed it. And then I'm going to say, didn't close it for some reason. Okay, now it did. So I'm going to create a new project. So file, I'm going to say new, open folder, add folder to workplace. So let's create a new file and just I'm going to name it file1.txt. And now it will ask me where to save this file. So I'm going to say desktop and I'm going to create a folder here and not a Windows guy, so don't laugh at me. I'm going to name it with the same name that I picked for my remote repo. So Git playground. Doesn't have to be the same. But I just want to pick the same name for consistency. All right. So we create this file, file1.txt. Let me just close it and open folder so that way we can see the files here. So I'm gonna open folder and then I say Git playground. So I can see the files inside it. All right, so this is my file, file1.txt. And then I will be creating two files. So file1.txt and then file2.txt. All right, so please follow me as we go along. I'm getting a question. Can you send it in the chat? What do you mean send? Send what? The link to the course, to the workshop website? Yes, it is up in the chat. Can you see it or not? It's up right up above what you just typed. Nawaf. Okay. Thank you, Muhammad, posting that again. So file 2. So I'm gonna write just file 2. And then I'm gonna start line 2 and continue, right? Line 3, and then save this file, and then go to file 1. I'm gonna write file 1, and then line 2, and then line 3, and then I'm gonna leave an empty line. Right? It's always good to leave an empty line when you try to write code or when you do version control, so that way Git doesn't complain about it. All right, so let's go to our PowerShell. Why do I have two here? And then I want to go to the folder where I put this file in. The easiest way to do it is especially if you're in deep in your file system, is just right click and then say copy path, right? And then go to um, the PowerShell terminal, and we want to go to that folder. So I'm gonna cd there, so change directory, go to that folder, and then just right click, then it will paste it. So I can hit enter because this is a file, so I can't go to a file, I have to go to a folder, right? So I'll go to this folder, remove the file name, and then hit enter. So now I went to the folder where I put my code or my files that I want to work with Git on, right? So at first, if I run the command that we kept running, git status, it will complain that this is not a Git repository, right? So the first command that we need to do when we created a new repository is to follow these commands here on GitHub, right? So you need to run git init first, as we did last time. So git init. Now, if I run git status, we can see that we have untracked files, the files that Git is not keeping tracking. Now this is a Git project or a Git repository, right? So just running Git init makes it a Git repository. So what should we do now? We should be adding those files. So we do git add, and then as we add, remember when we add, we make a snapshot of our changes, is basically we're adding multiple files, right? So we can commit multiple files. So we can add first one, and then we add the file 2, and then if you're on Windows or Mac, you just hit tab after the first letters or so, and then it will do the autocomplete for you. All right, so now we did the git add. So if I go ahead and run git status, and basically we are going to get that these files are staged now, right? So changes to be committed. So we're ready to commit, and commit is basically saving a snapshot, right? Yes, Sahar, always hit tab for auto completion. It's a lifesaver. So git, and then you run commit. So git space commit, and then you do -m, right? And then you give it a message, right? Typically, people write first commit or init commit, right? So we say first commit, and now we committed this, right? So if I do git status, there is nothing here, right? If I go to my file on my text editor and go to file 1, and then I'm going to add line 4 and then enter, right? And then save it. If I go to Git now, Git should know what happened to this file, to my local repository. So if I do git status, it will tell me that change is not staged for commit. That means there was a change to file1.txt, but we did not add it, right? Sohaib Alamdi said it's telling me it's not a Git repository. That's because you need to run git init first. So you go to the directory and run git init first. This you're initializing it, and then it should tell you that it is good. So now I need to before I add or commit. Sometimes as you work on a project, you don't know what happens to this file. So what you need to do is you need to run git diff to see what change was made to this file. So git diff to file1.txt. So git diff will show you the difference, what happens to this file. And if I run it, we get this beautiful output in colors. And as you see that the file that was changed here is file1.txt, and you get something with green, plus means that something added to it, and you added line 4, right? If you like the change, you can add it and then commit, right? That means you're storing a snapshot of this change. If you do not like it, as this command will tell you, you can just restore it. Restore means you undo the local change. So again, always run git status on any file that you have, right? Any repository that you are on, the repo that you are on, run git status, and then it will tell you what command that you can do next. So read this. It says you are on branch main. Change is not staged for commit. Git add, and then the file to update what will be committed. So do you want to add it to be committed, or do you want to ignore it? So discard changes, you do git restore, and then you give it the file name. So if I don't like this change, I can do git. So you see now here in the text editor, line 4 was added, and even VS Code is really smart that knows that this was changed. So we got a green here. But notice if I run the command git restore on the file. So I do git restore, and then I give it file1.txt. Now, if I go here, that change was gone, disappeared. And if I go to git status, it says nothing to be committed. So you basically, this is how to do undo locally, right? So now let's see how people collaborate when they work on a project. So now if I want to push to GitHub, we don't know where GitHub is, right? So we don't know the URL to your repository is. So we need to add another remote repository. So now we have local repo that is on your computer, and we're going to have a remote repo on github.com. All right. So let's create or let's add this remote repository. And we did git init, we did git add, we did git commit, and our branch is already main. I don't need to rename it. All right. So git branch -m main will rename the current local branch to main, because the one in GitHub by default is main. So we did that. I don't need to run it. You can run this command if your branch is named master, for instance. So I can jump to this last command, and then I say git add origin, and then give it the URL, right? I am on a virtual machine, so I can copy and paste. So I'm gonna run this command. I say git remote, and then add origin, and then I give it the URL. So https github.com/ku-github-workshop, and then git playground.git. All right. So we added this as a remote repository. And remember, we talked yesterday that origin is basically a shorthand name to this long URL. So whenever I want to push my change, I say git to GitHub. I say git push. I don't put the URL. I use this shorthand name origin. So I'm going to say put origin, git push origin. And then I want to say the branch that I want to push to. So git push origin main. And it's gone, right? So now if I go here and reload, I will see my change. All right. So now let's suppose that we are working together, right? So I added a developer here. So I invited a developer, a collaborator here, to this repository, right? So we can go to settings, collaborators and teams, and then I add people to give them permission to push and make changes here, right? Just for the sake of simplicity, we pretend that the user that we have added is someone who is just accessing GitHub and making changes. All right, so someone who's making changes to the content of files on GitHub. All right, so if I click on file1.txt here on the web page, and then I try to edit this file. All right, so I'm getting someone saying main doesn't match any failed. Um, so the Mohsen try to basically run if is your branch main on GitHub. So the first thing I would do is to run git status and see if your branch is named main locally. And then if not, you need to run git branch minus m main if it says master, right? And then when you push to GitHub, if you're getting this, try to do git push origin main. If it doesn't work, you need to do upstream. So you use just -u origin main, right? So try to run this command and then see with -u between push and origin to push it upstream, right? I'm not gonna run this command, so I need to. All right, it's all good. Good. Thank you. So let's see. So now I want to edit this file, right? So what I want to do is I want to go to edit this file. Now I am in GitHub. I'm not on my text editor. So I want to edit and I want to add a new line to the top. So I say new line added from GitHub, right? .com, right? And then I can commit similarly. I can commit here using this web interface. So I commit, you have to give it a message. So I'm gonna say updated file 1 from github.com, right? You can put any message, right? And then you commit the change. All right, so now this change is not here on my local repository. So we get a change difference now, right? So if I do git status, it will basically have no idea that the change was made to the remote repository. All right. So one way to do it is to, if you want to update and download the changes from the remote repository, remember when we want to upload things, we want to push our changes to from local repository to GitHub. We run the command git push. Now, if we want to get the change, we need to run the command git pull, right? So I do git pull origin main. And as you see, the file1.txt has only file1. It doesn't have this new line added from github.com. So if I run this command, so it did downloaded it and it told me that one change, so +1, that means one change was added. So if I go here, I can see this change was added and the green highlights disappeared because now we don't need even to commit anything here. Okay. So that's how you make a change and then you download the change. Obviously, things are not that straightforward and great when you're working with a teammate. So sometimes they will push and update your content, and you always push sometimes they commit and they push to GitHub, and you commit something else, and you get some conflict. All right. So let's introduce some conflict now. For a situation that is not so as straightforward as it is right now. So if we run git status, we can see that there isn't much of a change here, right? So let me go to this file1.txt on GitHub, and then hit edit this file. Now I want to remove this line, right? So from github.com, right? Um, um, so I want to remove this one and move file one to the top, right? Back to what we had before. And then at the end, I'm going to say done editing on GitHub, all right? And then commit this change. And then I'm going to say edit to from github.com, right? And then commit this change. Now, if I go to my repository here, we can see if we click on the 3 commits, we can see the messages that were added to each commit, right? So we can see what changed, all right? If I click on this commit, for example, edit to from github.com, GitHub will also show me the diff. So this line was removed, this line was added. So now the question is, what if I didn't pull, right? What if I forgot to pull? So I went ahead and run git status. So I am on branch main. I went to a different file or even the same file, right? So let's say I want to go to a different file, file2.txt, and I'm going to say done locally and then save it, right? And then go, so notice that I edited file 2 on my local repository and I edited file 1.txt on the remote repository, right? So now if I do git status, I see that file 2 changed. Now if I do git pull, it will download the changes from GitHub straightforward, right? Because I didn't touch file um, 1 locally, right? We changed file 1 on GitHub. Here we change file 2 locally. So nothing will happen here. So what will happen here is if I go and say git add file 2 txt, and then I say git commit, and then message, and say edited file 2 as my message. All right, I was able to commit, nothing, things are great. If I do git status, I am getting your own branch main, nothing to commit because it doesn't know anything about the remote repository. Now, if there is a command that I want you also to know, it's called git log. Git log, it will show you all the log messages that happens to git, all your commit messages. Again, it's git log. Just run git log and hit enter. If you're on a Mac, if you want to exit, you have to hit Q, quit. If you see a message, you have to hit Q. Here it doesn't ask me to quit. So we can see that the commit edited file 2, it happens Wednesday, September 20th at 21:28, right? This one is earlier, right? This one was made earlier than the uh, the last commit here. So now if I try to pull, if I try to update, pull, so I try to pull from the remote, git pull origin main, I am going to be able to get that change, right? So it did fast forward merge for me because I didn't change that file, the same one that I made here. So there wasn't any conflict. So I went here and then I got the done editing on GitHub, all right? So this is great, but what if I cause a conflict by editing the same line? So let's say a developer who's working with me, collaborating on the same file, edited the same line, right? So let me go to file1.txt, edit the file, and then file one, I'm gonna say add a line that says edited on github.com. All right. Um, you just hit Control L, Sahir. All right. So file one edited on github.com, and then commit this change. And again, I'm going to say edited. Um, just um, committed on GitHub again. All right. Um, so um, um, once we are done with this, we are going to commit. Remember, we're editing file one, right? So if I go here, I open the file and it says edited on github.com. So let's go here and try to edit this guy, the same line. And then I'm going to say edited on my local machine, and then save it. So if I run git status, I'm gonna say change to local file one. So let me add it, file1.txt. Let me commit it, commit message, and then I'm going to say edited locally. All right. Now, if I do git status, I'm going to get on the branch main. Things are clear. Now, if I want to pull from github.com, remember we are in a very dangerous position right now because both developer, the one who was working here locally, and someone else who was working also locally and pushed to GitHub, both edited this line, line one, edited on GitHub. All right. So what happens if we try to pull from remote? So if we try to pull, we do git pull origin main, and we run it. Awesome. So it did some automatic merge for me. I'm surprised because the one that I have on Mac, so it did the auto merge for me. Merge. It did the auto merge for me, but it did something missing here, right? I think this is only on Windows. If you are on Mac OS, you're going to get something weird, right? You're going to get an error message that says we cannot merge this thing. You have to do it yourself, right? Who has not getting this auto merge got an error message? Someone can type in the chat if they try to merge after changing the same line remotely, they got an error message. So everyone get what I get here, right? Now, if I run git status, yeah, so someone gotta get please commit your changes stage before you merge. Yeah, porting. So now if we did git status, we can see that the file it's unmerged, right? So if we look at the text editor here, we can see that this is what you have locally, all right, in arrows, right? And VS Code did some coloring here, nice for me. And this is after this arrow, right to the right side, we can see that this is the changes that were coming from github.com. So now you as a developer, you have to solve this conflict. right? So how do I solve this conflict? Is you decide, do you like the change, this line that's coming from your local machine, or you want to accept which challenge you want, which change you want to keep, right? So in my case, I don't want to keep the one that's remote, so I want to remove this. So I go to this line. I know the code because I am a developer working on the same project. So I delete this and I delete everything coming. Sorry, I shouldn't be deleting the one locally. Let me and do this. So I want to keep this one that is coming from line from my local machine, right? So you go to the file. I mean, obviously this is going to be a source code file. So you're going to make sure that the code is correct. And then you fixed and solved this conflict locally. All right. So once we fix this locally, we need to run git status. And now this change is now recorded that this file is still modified. It's not staged. So now we need to add it and then push it. So if I do git status, again, I'm getting this file, so I have to add it. So git add file1.txt and then git status. It tells you that it is ready to be, you have added it, right? So need to, since this is related to conflict, it will ask you just push commit it to record this commit resolve, right? So I'm gonna say git commit message. I'm gonna say, hey, I resolved the conflict. Always good to resolve conflicts, right? And now if we do git log, we can see that the committed on GitHub again came in and then edited locally because the timestamp is important. So you see this is a minute ago and this is 6 minutes ago, resolve the conflict. So now if I exit with Q, so now you need to hit Q because we're getting so many messages after running the command git log, and then I do git status. Now we're good. However, on github.com, the conflict is still not, where the changes are not in sync, right? So the last commit is committed on GitHub again. But if you see on my local machine, when I run git log, the last message is resolve the conflict. That means I'm not in sync with github.com. So I need to hit Q to exit. And then I am going to push my changes to GitHub, right? Since I committed, there is nothing here other than just you push to GitHub. So git push origin main, right? So you push the change and we reload here and we're going to see that resolve the conflict is the last commit, and we can also see the changes that were made to the files, right? So this is just, there is nothing here, zero change file, because this is just to record the that you have resolved the conflict itself. So we get 8 commits here. So this is the one that was last accepted, and this commit is to resolve the conflict, right? So someone asking about Abdulaziz is asking about the pull, how to do the pull. How can pull be done, because it didn't work with me. So if you try to pull from GitHub, first you need to be basically in sync with your local repository. It needs to be in sync with GitHub or behind GitHub, not ahead of GitHub, right? If you are ahead, that means your local repositories and remote repositories both have diverged. right? Each one went into a different direction. That means you need to do merge, and you need to do or even do something more advanced called rebase. So now if you do git pull origin main, it will tell you nothing to worry about, right? Because you're already up to date with the remote. So if I do git status, it'll also tell me that there is nothing to commit locally, and there isn't nothing to do because no changes are made locally and no changes were made remotely here, right? It is still telling me I am ahead by 2 commits. So if you are ahead by 2 commits, that means you need to merge locally, right? So there is another command so git pull, what git pull does is it will fetch from GitHub and then it will merge. So git pull is often used as a two-way commands. So if you run git pull, internally Git will issue 2 commands. One is git fetch, which will download from GitHub, and then git merge, which it will try to merge the changes that took place at GitHub, the remote repository, with your local repository. So if that didn't work with you, what you need to do is you need to run the command git fetch. You need to do it manually. So git fetch, and then you give it origin main, right? And this will only download without merging. All right, so it's always safe to run git fetch than to run git pull, because git fetch will only download from GitHub without merging. All right, so you run git status after the fetch. All right, and it will tell you nothing. In your case, it might say something after git fetch. So if it says the file was changed, you need to or you need to resolve the conflict locally. You need to go to your text editor and change the lines and keep whatever you want to keep. All right. If things were great after that, then you need to run git merge, and then you want to merge basically the origin with your local. So the origin is GitHub, so you need to merge origin, the one on GitHub, and the branch is main. This is the branch on GitHub with your local repository, right? So you run this command and it will attempt to merge it manually for you, right? Amal, we're getting, how can I share a repository with my team member to share project? To share it, you go to settings, as I explained earlier, and then you go to collaborators and teams, and then you add people, all right? And then here you can add them by their GitHub username. So you grab their GitHub username and then add them, and then ask them to check their emails or go to the notifications, and they have to accept. All right. And then they should be able to, if you give them the permissions to write, they should be able to commit to GitHub. All right. Let me see questions before. So I will stay for a few minutes after the end of at the end of this workshop, but I want to move to the next topic, and then I will take questions. All right. And again, this will be recorded. So if I went too fast with git merge and git pull, you will be giving the link to watch the workshop again at your own pace. All right, but I still welcome questions, so people can still ask questions. So next is the assignment. So what you need to do is you need to go to the GitHub workshop website. So let me do it here so I can do everything in Windows. So if I go to the browser and go to the workshop, so website, so ku dash github dash workshop dot github.io. So you should have downloaded the app. Next is you need to accept the assignment. So there's a link to assignment called Get It. All right. You click on the link to accept the assignment. And you click accept this assignment. And basically Git will fork this. So it will move this from a repository under the KU workshop to another repository, private repository for you. So this should be done. So just hit reload and you see the link here, right? So now this is a project that we took from GitHub and we want to work on. So you don't click on download, because if you download, you're going to download as a file system. So you're going to get some files. So what you need to do is you need to clone it, right? So clone is the equivalent of downloading a project, all right? So copy the URL to the project and go back to the bash, or sorry, the PowerShell. So I'm gonna get out of this folder. I'm gonna go back to the previous folder, and then I'm gonna download this. So I run the command git clone, and then I'm gonna paste the URL. Just right click, and this will download the project from GitHub, right? So clone it into get it dash your username. Um, when you click on accept, you're going to see a list of names. So be sure to select your name from the list. And if you don't see your name, you can type your name, right? So when you click on accept the assignment, perhaps you're not going to see yourself. You're going to see the list of names of people. Find your name. If you can't find your name, just type it in and we'll find you, right? Just type your full name, please. All right, so once done, so this is the project that we will be working for in submission. So it says get it, KL Harbi, my username. So it should say your username, and there is just one README file in it. All right. So next is I want you to go to your the folder where you downloaded the Get It app. So that means you need to go to your file system, um, file system on Windows is File Explorer, I believe, and then go to where you downloaded the zip file. So if you go to this link, why are my links shrinking here? So if you go to the workshop, so if you go to the workshop website, you should be downloading this Get It app, right? So once you download it, you should have it here. Just unzip it, right? And it will open a desktop app, right? Sorry, I think I forgot to extract it. So right click and say extract all. All right. I'm gonna extract in the same folder, and that's Get It Windows. It should unzip the file, and then you're going to get a graphical user interface. All right. Let's see if we can do this in 10 minutes. How long is gonna be, Muhammad? It's going to be a week, so you have a week, end of next week to complete the assignment. All right. It's taking forever on this tiny virtual machine to unzip this file. So I'm gonna open the one that I have here on my Mac, I guess, if that's faster. So get it. app, and it's here. All right, so you're going to get an app that looks like this. And the app basically has challenges that ask you to work through the steps. You need to work through all the steps. Many of these steps I have explained in the examples that I gave you yesterday and today. So first you need to link the app with your GitHub account. So you first click start the challenge, and then it will tell you what to do. So first you install Git, tell you about what Git software is, how to configure Git minus minus version, and then make sure that you have your username and email set up. And then you hit verify. So if you've done all of this, you're going to get check marks. If you have not done it, you're going to get X, right? So once you're done, you go to the next challenge, right? So this is done. And then you go to the next challenge. The next challenge will tell you about repositories. Please be sure to read the content, and it tell you that using the terminal command line interface, how to create a repository. So it'll ask you to create, first make a new folder. So you need to run this command, make directory hello world. So you will open, um, I wish I can speed this up. um, so you will open, so you're going to create, um, so I'll visit this one again, the get it folder, to tell you how to do the assignments. So you can create a new folder here called hello world, right? And make directory works in Windows, PowerShell, as well as Mac. And then you go to hello world, um, and then it will ask you to run git init. So you run git init, and then you hit verify, right? So once this is verified, you're going to get a check mark next to it. So what I want you to submit is, I want you to go to the project, the README file that comes under the project. So if I go to the get it uh, uh, playground, or get it KL Harbi, my username. I want you to open this in VS Code. So go to Visual Studio Code, and here I'm going to open a folder. So click on open folder, open the folder for the assignment, and you need to open this README file. So this README file has only this line, right? That has the assignment due date. Enter a new line. And what I want you to do with this assignment is, I want you to take every single step that you did here, right? And write the commands that you did to complete each step. All right. So if we are talking on get it, the first command, right? So this was installation, how to do the configuration. So you put the step 1. So you write 1, and then the name of the challenge. So you write git, and you write the commands. So write the commands in line. This is a markdown file, so it's good to write things in code like this, to write code commands, but you don't have to. So just write number 1, and then write the name of the command that you ran to do number 1. So you need to do, I run git minus minus version, and then I run git config, and then you keep writing all the commands that you did, and you do to number 2, repository, and then you write the commands that you did to complete this challenge. Once you are done, you need to add a screenshot. right? So you need to write the commands, and then you need to take a screenshot of the application. Let me see if the application is downloaded on this machine. Uh, Almost. I should have increased the memory before I start this. Um, so what you need to do is you need to take a screenshot of this. So let's take a screenshot here. So once you're done with everything, right, I want you to complete the challenge here. It's really self-explanatory, and it will also give you a hint if you're not able to understand something. You can see some hints if you make a mistake, right? So it will tell you what is wrong and how to fix it. So be sure to complete all the challenges, all right? So you need to complete all these challenges and then take a screenshot of your screen with all the challenges completed. So you need to take a screenshot, right? And then you need to add it to the README file that was listed here. So once you take a screenshot, save it, and then I will show you how to add the screenshot to the README file. All right, let's hope that this guy is done. Not yet. So if I open this folder, you need to add a screenshot. So once done, so be sure to have your name, full name, and student ID in this file at the top. So I'm gonna put my name, and then you put your student ID. Right, this will be auto graded, so be sure to follow the format. And then you add a screenshot of get it. No, not the code, only screenshot of get it, right? You don't need the code. They want you to write it in text under each step. And then I want you to add a screenshot. How do I add a screenshot? Once you take a screenshot, you need to write this command. So you do exclamation mark, and then you put the path to the image here, right? So you put exclamation mark, and then you put these parentheses, right? So first you put square brackets. This can be put as a text. You can leave it for the alternative text of the image, or you open a parentheses, and then you put the screenshot to the image. So if I get a screenshot .png, so you do screenshot.png. All right. Let me see if this is done. So I can take a screenshot really quick. So I'm gonna go to downloads, get it, Windows. Did I? I forgot where I added uh, this file. Finally, I thought I extracted it here. It's right here, right? Thank you, Faisal. So you click on this, it asks you Windows protect your PC, close it. Uh, how do I run it? More info. Um, where is more info? After opening it, okay. Thank you. Um, Here, okay. More info, run anyway. Thank you. So once you open this, complete all the challenges. So you go start at challenge one, and challenge one is complete. So you do verify, and then you should be getting the check mark. um, for email, and then find the Git install. So take a screenshot. How do I take a screenshot in Windows? I don't have a print screen. That's a shortcut on Windows. Windows. I don't have a Windows key on Mac. That's tricky. Um, snapshot tool. Thank you. So I type snapshot. No, snapping. I don't see snapping here. Snipping. Okay, this one. All right. So let me take a new screenshot here of this interface and then click on save. Good. So now it's telling me where when I save it. So I'm gonna go to desktop. I'm gonna go to the get it, KL Harvey, and then I'm gonna name it screenshot.png, right? Small, and then save it. And then I'm going to go to get it and then run git status. All right. So now we see I didn't save the file, perhaps. Yeah, so that's why I didn't see the change here. So the name of the file has to be exactly what you see here. So make sure that the name is exactly what you see when you link to it, right? So save the file here and then go to git git bash. Sorry, go to PowerShell and then run git status. Now we see that we have changes to this project. So 2 files needs to be added. So I'm gonna add the first one, git add readme, and then git add screenshot.png. So once I added those, I need to do the commit. So commit message done with um, get it, for example. So you commit it and then you push it to GitHub. All right, so git push origin main. If you go to GitHub, before I push it, if I go to, let me exit this tool. If I go to the browser, uh, I hate this. If I go to the browser, let me just close this so I can find my browser. I'm lost in this tiny screen. So if, since we accepted the assignment, it should send me directly to my repository. All right, so here, you can see that there is an X. That means I'm not done submitting it. So if I push it to GitHub, this should turn back to green, right? And I also have another script that will look for the code. So if I push this change to GitHub with my image and wait for this to kick in, the auto grading to kick in. All right, now see it's running here. And once it's done, you're going to see, you should see either a green mark that says you're done. So you see my image and my name and the commands that you need to add under each one. So I got green check mark. That means I'm done submitting this assignment, right? I do have code that I will randomly look at people who submitted. So please be sure to submit your own work, right? It's just stupid to cheat, right? This is really great tool to learn Git. And this is just me asking you to follow the instructions similar to what I did on the workshop on how to work with Git and how to learn Git. So if I click on this, you're going to see if I click on this workflow or action, you're going to see that this is successful. And you can even see if you click on actions tab, you're going to see your grade. All right. So if I click on this action, done with Git, I get a green check mark, and you're going to see the auto grading, and it says the point is 100 out of 100. All right. So please be sure to submit before when is next week, the 28th, 8 days from now, end of next week, last minute, and the deadline is also. You should see the deadline when you clone the repository, click on review the assignment due date. It should tell you what the due date here. All right. Any questions? So screenshot Faisal, screenshot for each challenge. No, we'll get everything done and then take a full screenshot. All right. Um, uh, um, so the challenge that I really care about are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So these are the first 8 are the ones that I do care about. The rest could be no, the last, yeah, the last one is also important. This is talk about auto pulling from a remote, requesting a pull release, pull request from a friend. This is optional. So the last 2 are optional. All right. So if you do the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, then you're good. Okay. The last 2 are optional. I highly recommend that you do everything, but if you find them challenging, then that's fine if you do the first 9. All right. Cool. So I'll stop recording now, but I will be still online taking questions from anyone who have a question. Again, the recording will go on YouTube, and the links are posted here, and I will make sure that your instructors are also sending you the links as well. Thank you all. Let me just stop recording.